Hi and welcome to my channel. My most popular video so far has been about my wonderful Nikon F4, an absolutely fantastic beast even to this day. However, it's not for everyone. It's a bit heavy. It's getting a little bit more difficult to find ones that have not got the odd fault. And, well, let's face it, is there a cheaper alternative? Well, I think there is. So, back when I moved to London in the early 90s, working as a theatre and artist portrait photographer, I had my trusty Nikon FM2 that I'd been using for years. But my main camera wasn't the Nikon F4 that I saw so many of my contemporaries using. I couldn't afford one of those at the time, though I have to admit I lusted after one. I sold my other Nikon FM2N a couple of years before because I'd been employed by a local photography studio for some very specific social event work and needed a camera that handled automation well, especially with flash, and autofocus was handy too. I bought a Nikon F801 and was pretty much love at first sight. The sleek black body was a radical change to my very traditional FM and FM2N. Everything was push button and command wheel, but right off the bat it was totally instinctive. The original F801 was first produced in 1988, so mine was second hand by a couple of years when I got it. In fact, its successor, the F801S, was already out, but again, it was a few more quid than I could afford. That F801 shot probably into 4 figures of films, portrait sessions for budding actors, some now household names, West End theatre stills, even an advertising job for a major jeans producing company. I used it so long and so hard that eventually the shutter blades fell apart. Luckily it was at the end of a shoot after I'd rewound, so the camera actually never let me down while shooting. I got another shutter fitted, which actually cost about as much as the camera initially cost me, but it still trucked on. And finally, I sold it when I went digital, and I always regretted it. True, it was never the F4 that I really wanted, but it put food on my table, clothes on my back, and paid my rent for a good few years. Suffice to say, I have a soft spot for it. Now, all these years later, I've invested in another one. The F801 is in many respects the little brother to the fully professional F4, a prosumer camera before that term became a thing. It shared much of the autofocus and metering system of the F4 without the vertical grip and power options, without the super high speed of motor drive, and without the interchangeable finder system. If I compare the 801 with my Nikon D800 from all these years later, they could almost be contemporaries. I'm actually going to speak some heresy here, but the F801 might actually be a better camera than the F4 for a lot of folks, and it may just be a better camera full stop. Don't get me wrong, I love my F4 now that I've finally managed to be able to afford one, and I still think it's pretty much the best Nikon film camera ever, but it's also a large source of frustration. For a start, there are quite simply too many lock buttons. There's pretty much one for every dial, and there's lots of dials. You can end up fighting the machine when push comes to shove. Also, time's not been particularly kind to the F4's viewfinder LCD screens. They leak LCD fluid and progressively black out. I have a non-leaking example, but they're getting harder to find. Yes, you can still use the camera with a messed up display, but in a somewhat crippled state. Like the F4, the F801 and F801S will happily run on rechargeable AA cells, and in an emergency you can go into any supermarket and buy batteries. Try that with a modern digital camera. This is actually one of the caveats of buying an F801 or an F801S at the moment. It would seem that there are quite a few of them that are being sold as spares or repair due to being missing their battery holders. And An F801 or 801S without a battery holder is pretty much useless, though there is a workaround that involves cobbling on an F90X battery grip. The vertical release button on the grip won't work, but you'll have plenty of power. Now, judging by the number of battery holders for sale at outrageous prices, I'm guessing some unscrupulous types on eBay have realised they can separate the camera and the MS7 battery holder and command as much or more from buyers for that bit of plastic that holds the AA cells than for the whole camera. Take my advice and don't play their game. There are enough complete F801s about without having to collect one in bits and pay over the odds for it. I fully expect that battery leakage did for a number of these holders, but this seems a tad convenient seeing the number on sale without them. Seeing that the MB10 battery grip can be had for £20 or £30, and then you'll have full power again, admittedly with a slightly more bulky package, well, yeah, you've been warned. Now on to features. Well, firstly, the metering system is largely the same as the F4, especially on the F801S. And like the F4, in my experience, you can pretty much set things to matrix metering and let the camera get on with it, getting roll after roll of perfectly exposed negatives. The metering is pretty much never fooled. The 801 has average and matrix metering. The F801S adds spot metering to that, which puts it even more firmly in the F4's wheelhouse. Modes are program, program high, aperture or shutter priority auto, and of course manual. And it can average meter even with some of the oldest Nikon SLR lenses. It can also do a neat program shift trick, whereby if you set the camera to the programmed auto P mode and press the shutter button halfway to display the exposure settings in the viewfinder, while that information is visible, you can rotate the main command dial to change the shutter speed and aperture combination, which will alter the settings whilst maintaining the same overall exposure. This allows you to adjust for factors like depth of field or motion blur without changing the shooting mode. It's actually a super fast and really useful dodge, and this comes from somebody who wouldn't normally be seen dead using a program mode. Now we come to autofocus, and while many folks will deride its one central small letterbox focusing point, and its slightly noisy, and some might say asthmatic, screw drive to the lens, the D lenses at the time contained no motors, it's at least as fast to gain focus as the F4. And once you've mastered the focus on the bit you want sharp, lock focus with the front focus lock button, and then recompose, it's really not that slow at all. I used to use it by dim theatre lighting and always hit focus point on the money. Added to this, it has the super useful focus confirmation indicator in the viewfinder that allows you to electronically focus non-autofocus lenses. Again, super useful. All these years later, my D800 isn't that much faster to autofocus, especially with older lenses. Just more convenient to modern tastes. There's DX film coding for film speed, but also DX override, so perfect. Handling is the F801 strong point. The very bright, high eye point viewfinder is a godsend for spectacle wearers. The body is smooth and comfortable with, to my mind, just the right amount of right-hand grip. The input system is fast and positive. No hidden menus, no bullshit. You see what you get and then shoot. There are no fussy locks to fiddle with, so this probably won't please those who want dials and clicky things. But if you want a tool rather than a grown-up's activity centre, the F801 will deliver. No fuss, no drama, except in the theatre. Just concentrate on the subject and off you go. Also, if there's a film camera other than the 801 or the F4 that's better for using dedicated flash, I haven't used it. But it does seem that the TTL flash metering system on the F4 is a little more prone to breakdown than that on the F801 or F801S, probably because of the extra contacts needed because the F4 has a detachable finder. Stuff I don't like about the F801? Well, if you run out of battery, you can't rewind the film manually, which is a bit of a bummer. But then if you run out of battery, your camera's pretty much a brick anyway. till you get some fresh ones in. The slightly flimsy battery holder is okay, but be a bit gentler with it than say you would be with the battery holder on an F4. The standard focusing screen's a bit meh. Did I mention it has interchangeable focusing screens? There are a couple of alternatives available, but they can be quite difficult to hunt down. My biggest gripe? It's only got an electronic shutter release, no cable socket like an F4. It's a bit of a hunt to find compatible releases these days, but I suppose there's always the very versatile self-timer in an emergency. The best bit of all is that this somewhat forgotten Nikon gem can be bought for between £50 and £70 all day. You can kit it out with premium Nikon lenses that are now even cheaper because Nikon blew out the F-mount on their mirrorless offerings. If you do break it, and that will take some doing, as there's a metal chassis inside the tough plastic body panels, you can replace it for cheap. Is it better than an F4? Well, not a properly working F4, but many F4s for sale today have had a far harder life in the hands of pros than any F801 would have done, except perhaps my old one if it's still going. But I'll stick my neck out and say that it's easily the best value film Nikon camera about. All in all, it's an absolute unit of a camera and a total workhorse even in 2025, and I plan to use mine a lot again. The wider issue, of course, is that all electronic cameras will fail in the end. The more complex the camera and the more electronic systems it has, the more chances there will be for failure. Batteries that fit may become unavailable for some models, spares will run out if they haven't already, and sleek picture-taking machines will become as useful as doorstops and paperweights. People will pretty much always be trained to repair things like mechanical Leicas. You can make parts in a lathe in pretty much any well-equipped workshop. Cameras like the F801, not so much, and they won't be around forever. So let's use them while we can. Perhaps salt away some spares to keep them going if we can. But just use them and marvel at how easy film photography was made by technology in the twilight of its golden age. So there you have my little love letter to the F801, a cracking camera when it came out, and actually still a cracking camera. Not quite as retro cool as some satin chrome beasts that you get around, but it's just a performer. It's a great camera. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, perhaps you'll hit the like and turn on your notifications. That really, really helps this channel and puts a whacking great big cheesy grin on my face. Also, perhaps you might think about subscribing. I really want to crack those 3,000 subscribers soon. That will be a real big day for the channel. And I've got more stuff on Patreon than ever, plus a new tier which will allow you to get me personally to critique your photographs. Yeah, that could be worth doing, couldn't it? Anyway, until I see you again, enjoy yourselves, take care, and keep taking pictures.